It's okay.
We're live.
Oh, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of AdSense on Air. Today we will talk about Google's search, one source of traffic that is very important to all of our publishers across EMEA and globally. Thank you once again for tuning in today. We are in June. Our second quarter is over in the year. So next month we will be announcing new topics and new sessions. We are really looking forward to bringing in more recent topics for you. Maybe some of you know me. If you don't know me, once again, I am Jada, a strategic monetization specialist here at Google. I work with publishers like yourselves across the Turkish and UKI markets. And today, in this episode of Google AdSense on Air, Valentyn is joining us. He is a senior outreach specialist from Trust and Safety, working here at Google Ireland. And he will talk about today what is up in search. So moving forward, one thing, if we go to the next slide. So please don't forget to register for AdSense on Air. You can go to g.co/AdSense on Air and register your email. Probably you're already registered, that's why you're here. But if you have publisher friends, if you would like to promote the program which you're enjoying, please go ahead, share the link with your friends. And if you have any questions upfront prior to the topics, please ask your questions again in g.co/AdSense question. In the AdSense on Air website, you can also see what are our upcoming sessions and find links and the videos for our previous sessions. So don't be afraid if you missed a previous session over the past 2 years. We are posting all the videos there. And you can always stay in touch with us and stay tuned for what's next. Before moving forward and giving the spotlight to Valentyn, I would like to remind you, your feedback is very valuable for us here at Google. We always want to hear your feedback, your opinions, and this will help us shape the live streams as well as the products and how we communicate with you. If you have any great ideas, would like to also contribute to this program, please feel free. We will be sending you the feedback survey tomorrow after the session, so make sure to fill that out. Normally, we do send the feedback. With the feedback session, we send the deck, but today is an exceptional case. Therefore, we will not be able to share the deck with you, just as an FYI. And yeah, that's it. Now, off to you, Valentyn. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Jada. Thank you for the introduction. As Jada said, my name is Valentyn. I work here in Dublin in Trust and Safety team. And my job is to help webmasters solve their issues when it comes to Google search. Today, I would be happy to give you a very brief overview of the basics of how search works, then move on to some of the tools that can help you manage your website presence on Google search, and follow up with the best practices you could follow to make sure that your website is discoverable and present on Google search. So let's start with the general concepts of how Google search works. Many of you may be familiar with the main three stages of searches in crawling, indexing, and then survey. So let's go over some of them in a bit more detail and discover what happens. So it all starts with crawling. Crawling is a process where a computer program, also known as bot, for Google it's called Googlebot, is going to a different websites and looks at the content and tries to store it in an index. So if Googlebot would go to all the website at one time, that would sort of clog the pipes. So that's why we have a scheduling mechanism that allows Googlebot to visit different websites at different times. And the webmaster has some level of control over what Googlebot does. And that can be controlled with a file called robots.txt that is pretty much on most of the websites that you can edit and specify where would you like Googlebot to visit or where you would not like Googlebot to visit. Once Googlebot visits those websites, it starts to organize the content in one big index. And that index is huge, but it is not limitless. Why am I saying that? Because if there are multiple versions of the same page, let's say you have an HTTPS version of example.com, or HTTP version of or HTTPS with those are three different URLs, and only one will be selected to be stored in Google Index. So you can help Google identify which version is the main one by using the rel canonical tag, which you could read on a bit more in the developer documentation. Also, if you have questions about this, please add your questions to the AdSense on air questions, right?
Yes.
And we'll try to answer them in the end with Q&A.
And just one thing, during the presentation, there is the chat window on the right side in YouTube. So please feel free to ask any search-related questions, mainly there, and we will address it at the end of our presentation.
Thank you very much. And if I come back to the indexing, once we have all of that information systematized and stored in Google Index, algorithm is trying to identify which of the results are the most relevant for specific queries and present them in the most useful way to the user to finally get them from the point what they are trying to do to the finishing point. So now that we all know how Google search works, at least the basics of how it works, let's take a look at some of the tools that we could use to manage our presence there. And the main tool that I'd like to outline is, of course, Search Console. Recently, Search Console has gone through a big redesign, and now it has a modern UI that is oriented around issues with sort of task-oriented flow, we call it. So that means that it is centered around specific issues that Webmaster can address. So let me tell you what I mean by that. If we open the Search Console right away, we can see that we're presented with the most useful information. We have a performance report that has our information on how our website is performing on search. And we have coverage report that gives us of how many pages are included in Google Index, maybe some possible errors or issues there. And on the bottom, we have the enhancements where we can see if some pages have issues with mobile usability, or if there's accelerated mobile pages, also known as AMP pages, that may maintain some issues that we could fix. Performance report is probably my personal favorite section of the Webmaster, of the Search Console. I'm still calling it the old name, the Webmaster Tools. It's been a while since it's been Webmaster Tools, but still. And in the performance report, we have quite a bit of information, very useful information that we could fetch up until 16-month data in there. Why I like this is that it also allows you to compare the performance on different types of devices in that in the filter menu. It allows you to filter different types of pages. It allows you to highlight or remove the highlight from them. And it overall is presented in a very useful way. Also, in the bottom of the page there, you can see that we can see the queries that actual users used to get to your website. So that is very useful to know the language that your users are speaking, the language that your users are using to get to your website. There, in the same section, you can see the pages, the countries that our website is experiencing traffic from, and the main devices that people are using to access this website. And as I've mentioned before, the design is centered around task-oriented flow. So in this example, we have an accelerated mobile pages report. If we open it, we can see that we have 4 pages with an error. If we scroll down, we can see the error type and what type of error it is, more or less. If we try to reword it in the most user-friendly way so that Webmaster understands right away what is asked of them. And all of those things are as actionable as possible. Once you click on that issue, on that specific URL or that issue, you can see a detailed example and detailed information of what happened there. Also, it can highlight pieces of code that contain validation error in red, which is quite useful. Usually, we know that in reality, very rarely only one person works on a website or on a portal. Usually it's a team of people. One person is specializing in structured data. Another person is fixing the AMP issues. Third person is thinking about the SEO or overall optimization, web performance. So in new Search Console, there is a feature that allows you to share specific report by link. So once you select that, you can just tap the share button, enable link sharing, copy link, and send it to your collaborator, somebody you collaborate with. You can also see that all of these actions on these GIFs are performed on a mobile device, which is also another thing that new Search Console has, is ability to use it on mobile, which wasn't there, wasn't as good before. And finally, if you've identified the issue, you've seen that red piece of code that highlights where the validation error is, you can address it and fix it. Once you fix it, there's going to be a button that says validate a fix. That's what I mean by result-oriented flow. Google Search Console presents you a specific issue, highlights where it is, allows you time to patch it, fix it, apply changes, and then validate the fix to maybe re-include that page to Google Search, or make sure that it is recognized as a valid AMP page. So that was all about the issue-oriented flow. Let's take a deeper look at the coverage report. In the coverage report, we can see a few features that have been there before, as well as a few new ones. Sitemap filter is still there. You can submit your sitemaps there. See how many pages we have that are valid, how many pages there are containing errors, or pages that we have excluded with robot text file, or the no index meta tag, or other methods that allow you to exclude the pages from search. Also, as before, the wording in many of those error issues that have been used in details section has been changed quite a bit to be more obvious to the user. For example, if there's a file that has been forbidden from indexing or crawling by robots text, you're going to see an error message that tells you this in plain words. And there is a new tool that I also fancy quite a bit. It's called the URL inspection tool. That tool allows you to see basically the history of your interaction, the history of interaction of a web page with Google. You can see when the page was first discovered. I think you can see when the page was first discovered. You can see which one is the canonical version that has been picked for it. You remember in the very beginning of this session, I have mentioned that index is huge but not limitless. That's when I'm coming back to it. Since Google tries to select one page, one canonical page to store in Google Index for specific content, you can see which page has been selected for it, and you can more or less have a detailed breakdown on what's going on there. It is extremely helpful for debugging the indexing issues, seeing what enhancements you can have on your page, seeing how it looks live, because there's also a button that says test live URL. And also allows you to request indexing from Google Search. And finally, a links report. That one hasn't changed that much. Basically, once you click on it, you can see all the sort of links, top link pages and top link sites, top linking text, and more information there. Oh, so that's sort of all on Search Console. If you have any more questions, please ask them in the chat or in the spreadsheet, in the forum. And the next tool I'm going to talk about is Google Trends. I would say that this tool could be underutilized among the webmasters and developers, because Google Trends allows us to see what's popular or what's trending right now in a certain region or a certain locale. You can narrow it down into a more specific area, or it helps you understand what is your audience interested in at this period of time or at some point in history. Another really cool tool that I personally like is Google Alerts. Google Alerts is super useful for understanding when something new popped up, when there's a new publication. Google Alerts is basically an alert system that sends you an email or notifies you whenever there's something new about a specific topic. For example, in this example, I have my name. So in in Ukrainian, so if somebody's looking for it, I can see what's, if there's a live publication about it. Ooh, and another tool that I also like a lot is SiteKit, but that one is for WordPress only. If you're using a WordPress CMS, you can install it and have an integration with tools like Search Console, Analytics, and Page Speed Insights.
I've heard a new beta version of this is launching.
It has, yeah.
We have very exciting for all of our publishers.
Yes, I've known people who've been working on development of this tool, and I'm very excited about it. And what I like especially about it is that you don't have to install too many plugins, because I feel like in the CMS space that might be an issue sometimes when there's too many plugins, especially when it comes to security. You have to be mindful of the maintenance of those plugins. Make sure that those are frequently updated, that security patches are rolled out there, and if there's a new security patch, that it is rolled out also to you.
Amazing.
So if you are using WordPress, make sure to try out the SiteKit with google.com, and let us know what you think. Finally, that is another tool that is very close to my heart that I like. It's Lighthouse. Lighthouse is available as an extension or as a tool that is available straight from the Chrome Developer Tools. If you go Chrome Developer Tools, then go to Audits, you'll discover it there. You can see, you can run a number of different reports about performance. If you're developing a website that is powered by PWA, you can also test the PWA there. You can test for accessibility, best practices, and for SEO. With one important caveat there, an SEO test there is not like a comprehensive audit that you might get like from a dedicated service, but it is in a way a sanity check for you to sort of check if you're not tripping yourself up. Maybe you've been developing a web page where you put the no index tag and you forgot to take it out. So it will flag it to you. If you've made some of the basic mistakes that web developers or webmasters sometimes make, it can catch them and surface them to you so that you know that you're set up for search before you publish the web page. It can also be used from a command line if you're developing, or it can be integrated programmatically into your build process as well. So those are a few key tools. I hope it's not going too fast. I hope we're going to have a bit of time for Q&A and conversation later on. But the last part of my presentation that I've talked about in the very beginning was the best practices that you could adopt for your website. So let me just go over a few of these and maybe try to maybe talk about some of them in more detail. So one of the things that I keep recommending is to make your page secure by default. That means please adopt the HTTPS. It's a message that we've been trying to deliver for quite a long time. HTTPS is a better way to present to users with content. Since recently, HTTPS is also one of the ranking signals, and it's a minor signal, but still a signal. And I would say that HTTPS is important for maintaining the authentication, data integrity, and encryption between you and between the server and the user, sort of the CIA principles of confidentiality, integrity, availability. HTTPS helps you to maintain that integrity principle so that nobody can do an HTTP sniffing attack on the website. Since your traffic is encrypted, nobody can be between you and between user and your server. So that keeping your user safe, it is a very important thing. So if you haven't yet, read up on migrating to HTTPS. My colleague Vincent and Fatih has recently made a HTTPS specific hangout that can walk you through the process or warn you of the things that you should be mindful of, because every HTTPS migration is basically a site migration. You're moving from one set of URLs to another set of URLs. So that is a process that should be taken seriously. But if you make it step by step, if you follow the guidelines, you're going to be you're going to be fine, and you're going to make your website safer and your users safer. Thinking about your users is something that I cannot repeat enough, because your users should be in the center of attention. Knowing what your users want, focusing on their needs, and making it as easy for them as possible to achieve their goal is the sort of the core of the job of a webmaster, to optimize the website to make it as usable, as easy for your user to achieve their goal as possible. And in order to do that in the best way, you should track and measure what users are looking at, how are you currently performing. Lighthouse report is a great tool to give you a good idea of where you are currently, what you could improve in your performance. And on the technical side, you can use Google Analytics and Google Search Console to get also the data on how your website is performing before Google are getting to your website in search. I'm talking about Search Console. And you can get an understanding of what users are doing after they get to your website with Google Analytics. So make sure to use those tools and track and measure the things that matter. And last but not the least, be multi-device from the start. I think this is the advice that we've been hammering down for a long time, especially since the mobile-first indexing is already in full swing. If you're not familiar with mobile-first indexing means that the version that is going to be selected for to be stored in Google Index is going to be the mobile version of the page. So let's say you have your page for desktop and your mobile page, so like m.url, right? And if you have fewer content, if you have less content on your mobile page, that's the content's going to be indexed. So make sure to achieve the parity in content between your mobile and your desktop website. If you're using responsive design, you're fine. You're already serving the content, like equivalent content to users on mobile or users on desktop. So think multi-device from the start, especially right now. I think more and more users are joining the internet straight on the mobile device without having a desktop computer. So also keep that in mind. And with that, I think the sort of conversation part, me talking part, is coming to an end. And I think now we can have some time for questions and go over some of the Q&As.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was awesome. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, all these tools. I mean, I have been talking to my publishers about the Lighthouse tool, for example, the mobile desktop, the making sure it's always across multiple devices, and we should always use the users first. For example, Google Trends is something I use to have fun. I really check what is happening in my country or worldwide, what happened recently. I even have the screensaver. So we have actually pretty cool stuff, and they're all free and publicly available, right?
Completely free and fully publicly available. Anybody can use them. Lighthouse, by the way, if you go, as I've said, you go to Chrome Developer Tools, you dig around there, it's already built in there. It's baked into Google Chrome. So if you have Google Chrome, you have Lighthouse already.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And another tool that I did not mention, but I feel like it could be. Since you started talking about Lighthouse, I figured it would be confirmed for me not to mention it. It's something that is called Chrome User Experience Report. Check it out, search it on the search engine of your preference, and then see it for yourself. It is a tool that allows you to understand what type of devices are people using. Are they using mostly 2G internet or 3G or 4G? Or is their connection speed fast? Should you focus on improving your performance to load the page within 3 seconds? By the way, another fun fact that I keep repeating is that if somebody opens the web page and it doesn't load within 3 seconds, they leave. Exactly. Ask yourself, do you personally wait for more than 3 seconds before you leave the web page? And once you answer that question to yourself, you would have a pretty good idea on what to focus on in terms of performance of your web page.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the Q&A, some of the questions, if we have any.
Nice.
All right. We have a few questions.
Great. Do you want me to read out the questions so you can reply them? All right. Our first question is, which is better for user site to open the search result links in the mobile site or the mobile app if it is installed?
Which is better for user side to open it open the search results links to mobile? I'm not sure I fully understand the question.
I'm also not quite sure. So whoever asked the question, would you mind either explaining it a bit better, or
yeah, it's
so can you have is it like you have the exact same thing in mobile app and the website?
If the question is what is better, an app or website, then the question may vary.
Yeah, it's a very different question.
But overall, I'd say that a website is something that is accessible to everyone on the web. If you made it accessible for everyone on the web, you don't have to go to a specific marketplace for an application for one operating system or the other one. It would be available on the web. So it's not functioning within sort of a closed garden of a specific thing, but it's sort of out there in the wild, in the web. So please, if I answered not the question that you have asked, please do clarify a question. We'll come back to it. But meanwhile, we can take another one. Yeah.
Great. So another question is, so recently Google stopped allowing to select the types of ads. I will probably answer this because it's related to ads. I can show on my website. Is there any way to still select or at least encourage certain types of ads to appear on my site? Text, for example. So if you are using Google AdSense, we do have multiple ad formats, be it display and text ads, native ad formats such as in-article, in-feed, or match content. These are across both desktop and mobile devices. As well as you have our greatest and the latest feature called auto ads, which enables you all of these four mentioned above, as well as two overlay ad formats, which are anchor and vignette. So I'm not sure if it is something your website related. Maybe there has been some changes in the current setup. Maybe you have been using auto ads and disabled some of the formats. But my suggestion would be is using auto ads, try all the ad formats you have there, and display and text ads, as well as all the other ad formats I just mentioned, should show. If this is the case and your ads are still not showing, please feel free to reach us via the Google AdSense Help Center and write either to the community or get in touch with us within the AdSense UI. You can always give feedback on your left navigation panel. You will see feedback. So there is like Google AdSense is serving ads as usual. And I really encourage that. Give it another try with auto ads to see everything functions well. Perfect. So next question. How important is the canonical link? Did I pronounce it correct?
Yep. How important is the canonical link? That's, if you mean how important is it to self-declare the canonical, or how important is it in general? I mean, in general, Google will select on which version is canonical sort of itself. But what you could do is you could help Google understand which version would you like to see as a preferred version of the page. Let's say you have a multiple versions of your homepage, and the one where somehow is detected as canonical is the HTTP version versus the HTTPS version that you've recently implemented. So you want to specify that the HTTPS version is the default one currently, or if you already have a 301 redirect set up on the HTTP version, to make sure that Google knows that this is the version that you consider to be the main one, the canonical one.
Okay.
So so I'd say that rel canonical is important for that. Also, you can use sitemaps to help Google understand which pages to consider the canonical ones, or the ones that you want to see in Google Index. Or sometimes there's pages that you don't want to see in a Google Index. So for those, you obviously don't declare the canonicals, or you use other meta tags or the HTTP response headers to address those as well. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And also thank you so much for all your questions, our viewers. So moving on to the next question. is I am unable to see Discover tab in Performance tab after migrating to SSL site from non-secure one. Please guide.
So the Discover tab is a recent thing, and it's not. I don't believe it's available to everyone yet. So right now, you manage like your website, your HTTP website, apparently gotten selected for for testing this feature, for testing the Discover tab. It's not available to everyone, and since you are checking the HTTPS version of your website, the SSL site from non-secure one, as you say. It is considered a different URL, so it is not available apparently for that specific URL. But it is a feature that is currently sort of in a testing mode, so it's not available to everyone. So everything is fine. Nothing went wrong. Everything is okay. It's just not available for that specific URL at this point of time. It should be later on.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. So next question is, what about if my site is responsive? Do I still need a mobile version?
No, you don't. You absolutely do not need a mobile version. Right now, our recommendation is to keep with your responsive website.
Mm-hmm.
You're great with it. Like you are Grant from the MFI, mobile first indexing point of view. Responsive website or dynamic serving either is good, but we do recommend the responsive website because it adapts to all types of screens automatically. So if you already have a responsive website, fantastic, work on the performance of it, but you're already on the right path.
Great. Actually, can I have a follow-up question on this? What about accelerated mobile pages? You have a mobile responsive website, which is working amazing. And say it's an article-based content, right? And you also want to do AMP. Then is it encouraged also from the search indexing part to have AMP and responsive at the same time? It's
absolutely up to webmaster. We have, from the user's experience, users actually like the AMP pages because they load fast. Because regardless of the bandwidth you're on, they usually load pretty fast. So
super fast.
If you feel the need in it, you could experiment with it. My advice is always the A/B tests are great. Make sure to isolate it, maybe do a small scale test at first, experiment with it, and make your own conclusions. There's no sort of size fits all overall, but I would say I would encourage to just overall experiment with it and make your own conclusions out of it. Overall, you don't have to have AMP pages. You can have a responsive design. It's going to be perfectly fine. But if you want to have an addition, like a couple of the article pages that are marked as an AMP page, or right now, I think the website is ampbyexample.com is AMP only. They don't have a canonical version. They only have an AMP version. That is their canonical version. So since it's an educational site, you can't really draw the lines anywhere. But it's fast, it's working, it is possible, and it is up to you to make that decision.
Exactly. And also AMP works good on desktop. It's not just mobile. Just like you said, AMP, the official website of the project is AMP, or even on desktop.
It's very much openable on desktop. It works perfectly on desktop. There are some limitations when it comes to JavaScript and using them in AMP, but those are made on purpose to make it lightweight and make it easily loadable.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's go to the next question regarding ads.txt. So why is ads.txt essential? I can give my opinion also after from the advertising point of view.
I don't know. Well, I'm guessing that ads.txt is robots.txt for ads.
Something similar. So ads.txt is where you authorize that you're Google's authorized seller, like a publisher, which you include, our publishers include their pub ID, as well as that they redirect or redirect reseller from Google. And this is right now essential for. It's not mandatory. However, it's highly recommended for all of our publishers because. Soon, some demand side platforms such as DV360, per default, they will be buying from publishers who authorize their inventory. So if you have ads.txt on your website and if it is crawlable in your public server, you will not miss out on potential revenue, hopefully. And it will be a good way to show you, this is my content, this is I own this website, and these are just ads ad slots I'm opening to sell. So this is the reason why ads.txt is essential. Hope it answers the question.
Thank you. I learned something today.
Yeah.
So it's slightly different from robots text, but they're both text.
Yeah.
All right, next one.
So the next question is, I have a subdomain. However, I have a single account. Should I have another account for every subdomain? So by account, I'm not sure.
A Google account, probably. Well, no. The answer here is no. You can have multiple domains and subdomains on one Google account, right? If you are if you're signed into Google, right, and you go to your search console, you can add multiple domains, right? Once you verify those domains there, they're going to show up in the list in the drop down where you can select which website you want to look at, because it is not a rare case where one webmaster can have 10 websites, 300 websites. It happens quite often, actually. Or people who work with the agencies, they have multiple or dozens, sometimes hundreds of websites in their search console account. So it's not unusual. So if you have domain and then subdomains, that's fine. Now I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, does Search Console has a limit? Maybe not thousands, but I'm pretty sure that you can add dozens and hundreds, so you should be fine.
Also, actually, the same goes for AdSense. Some of our publishers have a couple of domains, and as well as their subdomains. And you can also easily, like if you own all the websites, you can easily combine everything under one AdSense account and manage all your sites from one account. You don't need to open. Also, you probably will have difficulties opening multiple AdSense accounts. So if question was either to any of those products, hopefully you have the answer.
Yeah, I've been trying to address the Google account specifically, like the one that is there, and then under one Google account you can have many different websites. So that's fine.
Exactly. Great.
The first question explained, eh?
Yeah. Let's see. So apparently our publisher has a news website and the same app. Is it better for user to open the links in search results in mobile web, or to load the same article in the app if installed?
I think for the user, I think the best way to answer that question is to maybe do a very small scale UX study. For me, in general, as I said before, experimenting is a good way to learn what is working, what is not. So advice that I'm giving sometimes to webmasters is that if you have a couple of acquaintances in your life that are not regulars on your website, just give them your website and let them use it, and maybe give them a task or something, or try to find this or try to do this and see how they behave.
Exactly.
For you, it doesn't for the user clicking on the links is it depends on how fast those links load. It depends how many redirects are there. For example, if an app opens a link, opens a web browser that loads a page that is it
may take a couple of seconds.
It may take a couple of seconds. But if it's Chrome going to another web page, it's also going to take some time. So see for yourself. My advice is always experiment, document it, because if you document it, it's science. So make sure to do that. And make your own conclusions. Try it out. Try maybe a different approach. As I said, A/B test. You have one page where you take one approach, and an equivalent page where you take a different approach, and then you see, or you do it on the same page. Up to you how you conduct it. Methodology can be your own, but try to experiment. Try to do it in small scale to minimize the impact. But experimenting to see which user experience is better, like in this case, I think would be a good idea.
Right. I think so. Yeah, definitely. So moving on to the next question. This is also about monetization. So if you don't mind, I will take it. Can we combine auto ads and manual ads in a page? Yes, you definitely can. So what happens? Auto ads can be used as a standalone format, just auto ads without any manual ads, or you can use auto ads as a top-up solution to your existing manual ad units. So what auto ads will do, when you put the tag, this one single piece of text snippet across all of your pages, the auto ads tag will analyze your entire page, the structure of it, if there are any manual Google AdSense tags, if there are any Google publisher tags, and it will see where is the header, the titles, pictures, and existing ads. And auto ads will always give priority to your manual standard ad units. They will fill, depending on your ad balance tool, up to 100% of the time, and auto ads will show when it sees an opportunity on that page. If the content is not long and manual ads are already covering most of it, then there will be no auto ads. However, if you have a long content page and the manual ads appeared, plus you have multiple other slots that we can monetize, there's a great chance then auto ads will show as well. So simply to answer, yes, you can combine the usage to maximize your yield. Great. So there is one more question about SSL and secure site.
Yeah.
So apparently a user of ours forgot to add after migrating to SSL secure site. I am seeing a drastic drop, almost 70% in direct and Google search API traffic. How to fix this? Should we wait?
So right off the bat, I'm going to say that losing 70% of the traffic is not great. So what you should do is go over the process overall. Try to go over, like, what have you done so far? How have you done your move overall? Just sort of write it down for yourself. And then we have Google Webmasters Forum, which is a great resource for you to exchange experience with other webmasters and to get their take. I personally also participate in the Google Webmaster Forums to troubleshoot these type of things and to understand what happened there. So document it, write it down, write down what have you done, what guide have you been following with the HTTPS migration guide, and post it to the Google Webmaster blog to understand what might have happened there. In there, we have a community of webmaster experienced SEOs or developers. They can look into it and maybe understand what might have caused it, or how do you recover from it overall, or how do you fix an issue that might be present or might not be present. Overall, I'd say that losing 70% of the traffic you get is not great, and I'd say that it's not normal during the HTTPS move. So it is possible that something went wrong there. So feel free, please do post a question on Google Webmasters Forum. Also, our colleagues, John Mueller, he does these hangouts on air for webmasters during the webmaster office hours. He might not go into a specific case during the hangout. That's why it is useful to document those things and write them up and post them on a public forum, so that these things can be sort of looked at in detail by other experienced webmasters. Maybe they can point out some things to you that you could have done better, or that you could currently do to improve your situation.
Great. Interesting. Because I also always encourage my publishers to switch to the secure version of their websites. And this is the right way to have a more secure and safer internet, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It benefits everybody. Like, once the HTTPS means that your traffic is being encrypted on the way from that, basically it goes like from the user to the server, so that it's not transferred in plain text. If you use the HTTP protocol, the information is transferred in plain text. And if information is transferred in plain text, anybody who is on the same network could easily intercept those requests and see exactly what are you posting, what type of stuff are you searching for. If it is a login page, God forbid, if it's a login page on HTTP, then you can read the login and password info very easily. So HTTPS, using HTTPS is the right thing to do overall. But as I've said before, if you do it, when you do it, make sure to do it properly.
Definitely.
We have a Help Center article that is called Site Move with URL Changes, which is essentially what it is. You move website to a different URL, so that it has like a step-by-step guide, starting from the mapping your URL, setting up the 301 redirects from one URL to another one. All of those things that my colleagues Vincent and Fatih have been talking about, they're also written in text, so you can follow that specific guide.
Yeah, so everything is available there. Just I want to remind once again that we have already done an Hangouts and AdSense on Air live stream about HTTPS last November. So just like I said, if you go to g.co/AdSense on Air, you can go to previous live streams tab, and you will see the Hangout we mentioned and watch it and educate yourself. And if you want to migrate your website, you can do it.
One of the other things that I haven't mentioned, I'm still going to be talking about HTTPS.
No worries at all.
So if you are planning to build some of the more modern on some of the more modern frameworks like progressive web apps, you're not going to be able to do it without HTTPS. HTTPS is a prerequisite to be able to do it. If it's not using the HTTPS, then like you can't do it.
Yeah.
So it's not only beneficial for you, it's not only beneficial for users, it's also a possibility to sort of possibility to implement new technologies on your website or experiment with newer things. So overall, move to HTTPS, everyone, if you haven't yet.
So it's becoming like an industry standard.
Yes, it is. Like the last time I've been looking at the statistics on the percentage of traffic going through different protocols. HTTPS is over 50% in vast majority of the countries.
Wow,
and overall, if you go to our public report called Google Transparency Report, it has more information on the HTTPS adoption, and you can read in more detail on some of the selected countries that the information is displayed about, on what is the exact percentage of the traffic going in Google Chrome through the HTTPS.
Oh, that's a big percentage. It's very significant.
Yeah, I remember when I used to work at Google, and it used to be like, oh, almost half of it is going through HTTPS, and now we're like over the half.
Yeah,
definitely over the half.
Great job.
Well, we're trying. It's a lot of people trying to.
Yeah, definitely we are trying. All right, so we have one more question left, and also our time is running up. So I'll take one last question, and this is once again about monetization. So if you don't mind. So a publisher of ours is asking, is there any ad revenue difference between the site and blog? So it's again a quite vague question. I hope I understand it correctly, and I will try to reply. So between a website and a blog, even if it's like a blog spot, like a blogger website, the revenue difference comes there. So there is no such thing as revenue difference. It is the revenue you get from your ads. So even if you have exactly the same page, your website, two different pages can have different ad revenues, page RPMs as we call them, right? Or you have two completely different websites, but they can both have the same page RPMs. So it really depends on a couple of different metrics, such as the number of your ad units, where your ad units are located on that website. Are your ads viewable? So viewability metric, always keep in mind to make it 50% and above. Are you using very restrictive and fixed size ad units? Are you missing out on any dimensions that your website can be compatible? So allowing responsive ad units as well as having a responsive website design, right? And on top of that, if you're just using display ads, why don't try, again, just like Valentyn was telling, A/B testing is very important. So why don't you test maybe a couple of different formats to make sure you don't miss out on any different demand sources coming in for native as well as match content. So always, if you have a website and a blog, you can see their performance, read the data, read the numbers. Just don't always make sure in your AdSense report have URL channels and custom channels maybe, and see how they're performing. So with all the data at hand and how you kind of analyze it and how you really dig in deeper to all the different ad unit or URL or platform reports we have, you can see if there's a revenue difference, where it actually comes from. So that will be my general recommendation. Hope it makes sense.
May I have one more plug?
Yes.
Right? So if you haven't
Of
yet,
course.
go to YouTube, subscribe to Google Webmaster's YouTube channel. Make sure to check out Search Console. If you don't have Search Console, please do add your websites to Search Console to understand how your users are behaving before they get on your website. And finally, if you have a question, please do come to Google Webmaster Forum, post your questions. Our product experts on the forum will do their best to look into the issue and try to give you helpful advice.
Great. And the same, so I'm just going to jump on that.
Yeah.
The same goes for Google AdSense. Please go to Google AdSense Help Center for any questions, anything you may be curious. Everything is there in articles. We have communities and forums where our publishers help each other, and we are also taking care of them time to time, as well as don't forget to subscribe to our Google AdSense YouTube channel. Keep an eye on the Inside AdSense blog for the latest updates. And of course, tune in for the upcoming new sessions on AdSense on Air. We will return in July with a new topic. Hopefully, we will also do another session on the site kit you just mentioned. Yeah. We also have WordPress experts. Also, we did WordPress AMP plugin session in the last months. So anything is happening in Google AdSense product and that is relevant to our publishers, we are always trying to cover. Any feedback, please make sure to provide it within our feedback survey we will send out shortly. And yeah, keep in touch. Hope you enjoyed today's session, and thank you so much once again for joining. Hope you had a great time, and I learned a lot about Google search, and I'm sure our publishers, our viewers also found it very useful and helpful.
My pleasure, Jada. Please learn that more. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And everybody have a good evening. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.